Hello and welcome to episode 50 of the podcast. I am your host, Brenda Popritkin, owner and editor of all things The Wet Palette. With me today is the chef of one of my most visited and favorite restaurants in Miami. Welcome, Senor Pablo Zitzmann of No Name Chinese and Zitzmann.
How are you, Brenda?
Woo! Doing good,
Pleasure.
good.
Congrats on the 50th.
Thank you. I know.
Oh, it's crazy.
I was like, I like it. It's like it's a special number for a special guest.
Yeah, awesome.
So happy we finally get to chat on the record.
Yeah.
Currently, Zitzmann has retained a Bib Gourmand by the Michelin Guide for the last 3 years. You were also a 2022 James Beard Foundation semifinalist for Best New Restaurant and listed in the New York Times in the Best 50 Restaurants in America's list for 2022. The journey to make it here has taken a lot of patience and hard work, molding you and Zitzmann along the way. I want to lead with something we've discussed before, and that is defining Zitzmann, or should I say redefining. Please tell the listeners your vision now and definition for Zitzmann. What is it and what is it not?
Well, thank you, first and foremost. It's a pleasure. Zitzmann is a seasonal, contemporary Coral Gables restaurant. There are many changes with what we want to cook, with whatever is in season. If it's local or if it's national, we don't get married to being uber local, and we just cook food that is exciting to us. What is not Zitzmann anymore? We're not an Asian restaurant anymore. Even though that my background is very strong in Asian food and Japanese food in general. My background, my experiences, my travel, my family, my upbringing are kind of like being at the forefront of what Zitzmann is now, instead of just being a dumpling place. So in a nutshell, yes, it's just like a contemporary neighborhood restaurant.
It's a little bit more than a neighborhood restaurant.
I think it's at least that's what the start of this new era of what we call Zitzmann is, and it changes all the time. That's one of those things that it's always changing.
Mm-hmm. So, also, and this is a serious. You could stop if you want.
No. It's the coffee that's
okay.
getting here. Go ahead. Got it.
So also, and this is a very serious topic for me. Mm-hmm. Can you please commit out loud to never removing the big bread and the wonton and brodo? I already have it in writing, but to make it official and ironclad.
I will never remove the big bread. I tried to remove the wonton and brodo.
I know.
a few months ago, and
I had a tantrum.
Yeah, but no, it's not.
But I wasn't the only one though.
It's not going away.
Okay.
I promise you that.
Okay, listeners, we got it. We got it in writing, and I have it in audio. Taking it back to the very beginning. You grew up in a German-Mexican family in Colombia. How did your family end up in Colombia? And ¿en qué parte de Colombia?
I'm born and raised in Bogotá. My dad's family is from Germany. My mom's family is half of the family is from Spain and half of her family is from Mexico. And my mom is first generation Colombian. My dad is first generation Colombian. So yeah, I mean, my grandpa after the war, he relocated to Colombia. He worked for Volkswagen, and my mom's parents and grandparents, they moved from Mexico to Colombia, and that's where everybody met over there.
Any reason to just?
It was,
I'm just curious.
my great grandfather, he was a merchant, and he had a lot of businesses in South America, especially Mexico and Colombia. Well, Central America, Mexico, and then Colombia, and that's where they had their home base at, So I grew up with my grandma and my mom eating Spanish and Mexican food, and on my dad's side, I grew up with my grandpa and my uncles and everybody cooking German food. It was awesome because I was exposed to like different flavors and different things all the time from an early upbringing.
That's kind of my next question. What was your first memories of food? beyond just nutrition?
I remember my dad used to cook a lot, especially on Saturdays. And I remember spending time with my dad and my grandpa doing schnitzel and spatzel and sauerkraut, and I remember the smell of sauerkraut when still to this day, like it just hits me and just takes me back to that. So I think that is kind of like one of my first memories of food, for sure.
And you went to culinary school in Colombia?
I went to culinary school in Colombia. So I started design and then moved to law. Didn't do good with either one of them. And my mom sat me down one day and she was like, hey, I think that you should try cooking. Because during my summer breaks in Colombia, I was always working at a Mexican restaurant. I wanted to skateboard and I wanted to buy things and I wanted to party. So my mom was like, well, if you want to do all those things, you got to work. So I used to work as a dishwasher at a Mexican restaurant in Bogotá. And then when I went to university in Colombia, I was not doing good. My grades were horrible. And my mom and my grandpa actually sat me down and they were like, hey, we're not going to keep putting money into this. I think that you should try cooking. Let's just sign you up for a cooking school. And that's what I did. And 2 years later, I jumped on a plane and I moved to the States.
That was around 18?
That was around 18 years
18?
old. That is correct.
And did you speak English or you had to learn?
I understood it because I went to a bilingual school in Colombia.
Okay.
I was not very good at it. So when I moved to the States for the first time, I barely spoke English. I learned listening to music, reading the lyrics of the songs, and so I could get context and things like that. I used to read a lot. And but mainly was kind of like music what helped me understand English better, and then just
And your first job here was the line cook, Señora Martinez, or you did something else before?
Well, before my first official job here in the States was actually a few blocks away from here at Novecento, which was a Argentinian Italian restaurant right here in Coral Gables.
It's still around.
But not here.
Not that same Novecento?
Not that same Novecento.
Oh, okay.
So that was it, and I was a lunch cook. I went from having no experience to go into a restaurant that was doing 600 covers a day for lunch. It was brutal.
Yeah.
My first day, I cut my hand. I sliced my hand open. They were awesome. They welcomed me back afterwards. But it was very short-lived. I lived in Coral Springs. I had no car, so my dad had to drop me over here all the time. It was quite a mission.
Yeah.
And then eventually I met.
Your dad moved here too?
No, my dad he lives in Hollywood. But eventually I.
I mean, he left Colombia.
Yeah,
He didn't come with you.
No. My dad was the first one to come here.
Okay.
My dad moved to the States almost 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Almost. When I was very little. He was the first one. My sister moved here, and then after that I came. And then my mom retired a few years ago, and she decided to move here to the States as well. So now my whole family lives here.
Okay.
Yeah. And Novecento was kind of like the first real job that I had. I think it lasted, 6 months or so. And then I met this woman, Leticia de Melo Bueno. She used to work for Slow Foods, out of all things. And she was very well connected. I was desperate and needed for a job. I was in the process of changing my student visa for like an O visa and then eventually the green card. So I had to enroll in cooking school again. In order for me to keep, being able to be here, right? And that's I was not forced, but it was kind of like an obligation to go to cooking school again. So I signed up for this cooking school in Doral called San Ignacio. We're talking, 17 years ago maybe. I had to relearn.
Right,
cooking.
a refresher
course, right? So thankfully my skill level was at a point in that moment where it was a little bit more, I was more rounded. So the people at the school, they started putting me in different events, right? So, South Beach Food and Wine events that we're doing. So I was free labor, so I was just going and doing all these things. And then eventually Leticia connected me with Common Threads, which is a nonprofit organization that Michelle Bernstein was spearheading here in South Florida. So we were cooking on, kids how to cook. We were teaching kids how to cook, and lots of people that they didn't have access to a lot of things. We were helping out. It was a beautiful project, and that's where I met Michelle Bernstein. So one night in December, they invited us over to like a Common Threads closing of the year dinner party, and it was at Señora Martinez. That's when Michael's Genuine, Señora Martinez,
Right.
and I believe there was an Italian restaurant across the street. And it was the only 3 restaurants and the only 3 things that were happening in that area at that moment. And I fell in love with...
It was at Piccadilly. Remember?
Yes,
Remember?
yes.
It was like hidden?
Yes, something like that. And I fell in love with Señora Martinez. I love Spanish food, right? So it just reminded me of home, reminded me of Colombia. And then I went downstairs and I asked for a job. I stashed and I started working there. That's when, Michelle, still to this date, but that's when it was like... Señora Martinez was one of the busiest restaurants in the city, right? And that's when they started doing art walks, and the design district was kind of like, it was growing. So it was a really, really busy restaurant, very small kitchen. I was able to meet a lot of people, get exposed to a lot of things. Again, I was not necessarily fresh off the boat, but it was just so many things and so much that I had to kind of like learn and catch up. And then eventually, I left Señora Martinez because I was living very far away. Went back to Coral Springs and then moved back to Miami, and that's when I ended up working at Noble.
Oh, Noble.
Yeah, right.
The old location.
Yeah, the Shore Club. Chef Thomas. That he's one of my mentors, and my love for Japanese food was kind of like sealed when I stepped into that kitchen. I remember, back in the day in Colombia, my dad used to take me to teppanyaki places. My dad is an architect, but he's a photographer, and he was a big photographer in Colombia. So he used to do a lot of food and beverage, photograph, and a lot of work for restaurants. So I'm guessing that, he was being invited to like these little restaurants. And I remember, being like 7, 8 years old, having okonomiyakis and nigiris and takoyakis and things like that. And I was the weird kid that I was bringing dried sardines and dried shrimp into my lunchbox in Colombia. So then, of course, when I stepped into Noble and I kind of like recognized those flavors again, I just fell in love with it. And yeah.
You mentioned staging. How do you feel about the current movement, or I don't know if it's a movement or opinions that are just a little all over the place about staging because you don't get paid, and they're demanding that they do get paid. Is it valuable? Did you not get a good education? How do you feel about that?
To me, staging, it's important. It's important for any cook's development, right? I like to believe that before signing up for cooking school, you should go and stage at a couple restaurants, right? Try to pick, like a fine dining restaurant, try to pick a fast casual restaurant, try to pick like
A little bit of
everything in between all those things, so you can learn and you can choose what you're going to not only be good at, but also what kind of environment you want to work at, right? Once you've done that, then you can sign up to cooking school or not. But I think it's an important part of what the life of a chef or the career of a chef.
Even if it's not paid.
Even if it's not paid. I mean, you do internships when you're working with, like you're working for a newspaper. You do internships and you don't get paid for it. It's continuous education at the end of the day. It's just the way that you look at it, right? Now, of course, there's restaurants that operate, with their staff being 90% stagiaires and there's no pay. That's a different story, right? But I do think that it's a very important part of working in a kitchen. Fine dining, you got a stash.
I agree. Do you keep in touch with Michelle?
I ran into Michelle a few weeks ago.
She's reopening.
She's reopening, which is I'm very, very excited for. We ran into each other also at an event that we did for the Chamber of Commerce of Coral Gables. And it was awesome because we were panelists, both of us. So it was like a full circle. It was a full circle moment, and I have so much appreciation for Michelle. I think that still to this day she's a driving force and she's an example. I respect her a lot. I respect women in the kitchen big time. I was raised by women, and I think that what she has done for not only women in the industry but also the industry in general in South Florida, it's amazing. So yes, super excited.
That's awesome. So about that little location, I love that little location where it used to be, where Senora Martinez used to be.
Yeah, the post office.
But like nothing really worked out there. Now it's just a watch store and it's always closed.
Yeah, the thing is that it's very challenging because they couldn't do any remodelation to the space because it's a historical building, right? So we had like a really tiny kitchen. There was like 12 people in that kitchen. So they had to rent a commissary kitchen across the street that we used to call Cuba. Right. Yeah, so every time that you need something, you had to go to Cuba, and then the restaurant grew so much that they had to get a storage a few blocks away from there that we called Spain. And then eventually that grew so much that they got another space called Hell.
Oh, Hell.
So imagine just being on a Friday night service, you had to go to Cuba and then you had to go to Hell in Spain and all those things. But it was beautiful. I was young and it was one of the best times of my life.
Okay, so then you started in New York. Where did you, how did you decide to leave? You left Nobu and you went straight there? Or?
So I spoke with them and I was like, I wanted to kind of like, I always heard the New York stories, right? And I always heard the New York City line cook story, and at least my generation of cooks, we always aimed to, kind of like revive those stories. No, you're not a cook or you're not a chef until you prove yourself in New York City kitchens, right? Because allegedly, back then there were the toughest kitchens and there were the toughest places to work at. So, John George's, Boulay, Short Stash in 11 Madison Park, knocking doors everywhere.
That's when it was,
right?
When it was really 11 Madison Park.
So knocking on every door, spent a few days in a kitchen, a week in another kitchen, kind of like gave me a sense of what that monster was and if I was good enough for that, right? And it was awesome, but I miss home, so came back to Miami, and that's when I was still in Nobu, and I came back and I met Jeremy Ford, and actually before meeting Jeremy, I met Daniel Roy. I saw an ad that JG was opening restaurants here in South Florida, and I was like, this is my opportunity to be at a team like that in my hometown, right? And then I met Dan, I met Jeremy, we linked very, very quickly, and I was hired to be the opening sous chef or restaurant chef for the Edition Hotel. Now this is coming from a kid that I had no hotel experience before that.
So not for Matador, but just for Edition in general.
For Edition in general, so it was frightening.
Yeah.
It was super scary. My wife was pregnant from Nico, our firstborn. So it was an opportunity to, organize lots of things in my life. Number one, financial benefits, all those things. But more importantly, now, making a career, working with, JG that, still to this day, one of the biggest icons in the cooking world, right? So my job at the hotel in Matador and Market and Tropical and all those things, my job was I was spearheading the production for 3 John George's restaurants inside of the hotel, plus all the food and beverage at the hotel. I was the head of all the production, from like doing all the butchery, all the commissary kitchens, all the production, fabrication of meats. Like everything was done in my kitchen. I had a staff of like 65 people under me, and we were just making like all the things for all the restaurants. So Jeremy needed Thai basil dipping sauce. That's where my kitchen was. Like the Brava sauce for JG's famous patatas bravas. Everything. We were
the one they
touching
put on the
everything.
table with the little
The
bottle.
habanero, the
'Cause I
fermented
stole
habanero
one of
sauce. Yeah, it's delicious. It's delicious.
I have no shame in admitting I
Right.
stole
So that was kind of like my responsibility. It was a lot of pressure because not only being of course part of service as well, but carrying in my shoulders and my coworkers' shoulders the production under JG standards, working directly with JG, with Greg, that it's John George's culinary director, Greg Braden. It was just crazy. I learned so much, so many systems, so many things that I didn't even knew that they existed. It just opened my eyes completely to, different side of restaurants and cooking, everything. And it was great. I spent 4 years over there.
That was like 2012, 13.
Yeah, and it was awesome. I think that all the things that I learned over there are things that still to this day I apply, I use, I do. It is, to me, besides Nobu, kind of like my school.
Have you been back to Nobu?
I haven't been back, honestly. I keep in touch with Thomas, Chef Thomas. We speak very often. We talk very often. Actually, he came a few months ago to have dinner for the first time, and I was so scared, right? Because I wanted to make sure that he was happy.
You feel like you're that age and that level again, right? You want to impress him.
Yeah, I really wanted to show him that, because again, people write about things, right? It's like Pablo Zitzmann worked at Noble, and so I wanted to make sure that it's not only that we're using that, right, to just like talk about it, but also I wanted that all the food that we do here kind of like echo a little bit of with him, right? So he came in with us, with his wife and Sergio, which he was my sous chef at Noble as well. Now he's a corporate chef for Noble, and they loved it, and it was awesome. But I was a little scared because I want to make Thomas proud.
Of course.
And we're planning like a Noble OG's dinner. So it's gonna be awesome.
RSVP for it too.
Yeah, the OG Noble team. Mendin. I was actually talking to Mendin.
Mendin was there
week.
too.
Yeah.
That would be cool. But then you're really gonna go back. Asia.
Yeah.
Okay, so then at what point does China, Hawaii, and Japan come in?
So a friend of mine, Leo Pablo, he was another chef for JG. He reached out to me. He's like, hey, he's always opening restaurants, right? Leo is always doing so many things. And a recruiter, reached out to him and told him that, this group of people were looking for a chef with Asian food experience to open a concept in South Miami. And Leo had no idea how to do Japanese food, so he thought of me, so he put me in touch with these people. And I met them. I went to a meeting with Heath Porter, which he was the managing partner at a really small cafe here in Gables called Uvaggio Wine Bar. I met with
Same guy
them.
who does the trips, the wine trips.
Yeah, Heath. Right? Yeah, he's got a wine. He's got a.
It sounds fun. I get all that. I'm on
Yeah,
the news.
yeah,
I'm on the
yeah,
newsletter,
yeah.
and
He's actually awesome. That guy is just great, right?
Every time I get it, I'm like, I'm going.
Heath and Wine Tours.
Yes.
Yeah, and he also
That name sounds
has
familiar.
he's making his own wine now.
What?
So he had a a small restaurant over here in Gables. And apparently, these three guys, they used to go and to eat at this restaurant a lot. One of them, he had a dream of opening a Chinese restaurant. And finally, the opportunity to take over a space became available. So this gentleman decided to start looking for operators and managers and partners, right? So they used to go to Uvaggio a lot, and they liked their style of service. They liked the way that they were doing the wine thing, whatever it is. They became friends, and they convinced Heath to open this Chinese restaurant with them. So then he started looking for a chef, started looking for a head chef, right? I met with him. We did a couple tastings. Funny enough, one of my interviews we did with him, we flew together to Star Chefs, which is this awesome yearly conference in New York City. And we went together to do research and development as part of my interview process. It was weird, but I was like, okay, we're going to New York City together, and then we spent some time over there. We got to know each other. We had an amazing relationship. Did a couple tastings for them, and then they offered me the position to open this Chinese restaurant that we had no name for. We had no idea what the restaurant was going to be. These three gentlemen, Andrew, Robbie, and Alan, they were extremely generous, and Andrew decided that in order for me to be able to do the things that way that they were supposed to, while the restaurant was being built, I needed to go and travel Asia and just work.
¿Qué problema?
Things.
No, please.
And I was like, exactly. So I was like, all right, is this real life?
Wow.
Is this really happening?
Yeah.
And that's what we did. Heath, he's from Alabama, but he grew up in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. So he had a lot of connections in Hawaii. So our first stop was Hawaii. Spent some time in the Royal Garden, which is an OG dim sum restaurant in Oahu. Extremely intimidating because, again, I don't speak Chinese, I don't speak, Mandarin, and, I went there and the stash thing, right? So it's like, hey, I'm here to work for free. And they had no idea what that meant. That's not kind of like part of, work is work, right? So I finally was able to convince the dim sum master chef to, teach me every morning how to roll dumplings.
Lee?
And Mr. Lee. And, I ended up, besides just doing that at that restaurant, on Sundays I was going to his house, lighting up the barbecue and just doing Chinese barbecue, drinking beers and learning from them. Then I worked at a Vietnamese restaurant called The Pig and the Lady. In Chinatown in Oahu as well. Badass, just like incredible modern Vietnamese food. Yeah, it's still there. And then, between knocking on doors and getting to know people and meeting people, we were able to get connected with Yardbird, which is a yakitori restaurant in Hong Kong. One Michelin star, and they were part of the 50 best restaurants, the San Pellegrino list.
Not related to our Yardbird.
Not related to the Yardbird here in the States. And I got connected with their beverage director, Elliot, thanks to Heath. And then I went and knocked on the door, spoke with Matt. Matt is also another guy that worked in New York City at Masa and Nobu and places like that. So it was kind of like, it was a serendipitous moment. So I spent some time in Yardbird learning how to do proper yakitori. And then came back to the States, and then I went back again to Osaka and worked in a few ramen shops, learning the ropes. But all this is just like different because they're like we do not understand like why do you want to come here and work for free? Because what we're doing is nothing out of the ordinary. When in reality they're doing everything that it's out of the ordinary, right? Yeah. So at Hawaii, for example,
because it's a way of life.
Yes, right. It's different. So Mr. Lee, for example, at the Royal Garden in Hawaii, he was like, okay, I'm gonna teach you how to do everything, but I want to cook for you. He told me, and I was like, okay, perfect. So 5 a.m. in the morning, right? I'm used to having coffee and orange juice. He was making me for breakfast congee with pork belly and hot black tea. right? And I have to eat it out of respect, but it was just it took a lot of adjustment, and it was just like different and awesome.
And this is the answer why this Colombiano does Asian very well.
So I fell in love with it, and I not only the Japanese or the Chinese and the Vietnamese and Thai, and did from ultra fine dining and Michelin star restaurants all the way to hidden places in Hawaii in the middle of Chinatown that nobody knows about. I just completely immersed myself into it. And one of the things that I was talking with Mr. Lee was, the cultural appropriation thing, right? Which it's still to this date, but I remember back then it was kind of like a really touchy subject. What is this
it's
Latin?
It's still touchy, depends who you talk to.
Correct, right? But, I wanted to make sure that they understood that I was not trying to go there and steal recipes and bring them back to the mainland and make profit out of it. But it was more of I really like this. I want to learn from it, and I want to respect it,
and you appreciate it. Yeah.
So having conversations with Mr. Lee and his son, we came up with this term called cultural appreciation, right? And I remember that even when I was here in Miami, I was always sending videos to Mr. Lee and his son just to make sure that I had approval. And I had, after maybe 6 times of doing the hargao and all the other dumplings. Yes, it's going to be back in the
Thank you.
I got Mr. Lee's approval.
Yes.
Right, so that was awesome. So I didn't want it to go and kind of like reinvent the hargao. I was just doing the traditional filling and the traditional recipe, but with like my own interpretation of the sauces. So I'm keeping the dumpling the way it is, I'm keeping the filling the way it is, and then the sauce I change, right? And I got their approval, so that was awesome, right? So of course, we came back to Miami and opened No Name Chinese, and it was a really interesting part of my life, to say the least.
And that one opened in what year?
I don't remember.
What at what point does going on Beat Bobby Flay come in?
Oh, damn. So
I watched it, by the way.
Research. I was laughing.
I don't know. They reached out. I think that we had. I think that they hired a marketing team, or not. I don't remember exactly. I just remember that I came across an email for a casting, and someone in the team, they were pushing me to do it, and I was like, no, but that's not me. I'm not that kind of guy. And then eventually I caved in. I did the casting, and they selected me. And my wife convinced me to go. Like she always convinces me to do all the things that I don't want to. And they send you kind of like a list of things that, like, they send you 3 different dishes that you would like to do. You send the recipes, I guess that they read them, they make them. I have no idea how their process goes, but then they were like, yes, we're selecting the Kung Pao chicken, the dish that we were doing on No Name Chinese. You're going to fly to New York City in a few months, and then you're going to go and fight against Bobby Flay. And honestly, I did it because it was a free ticket in a hotel to New York City. I honestly didn't care about the Bobby Flay thing.
Right.
It was more like, okay, cool. I'm going to be able to spend a few days in the city and getting to know it. So that's awesome, right? I didn't think too much about it until the moment that I stepped into the studios. I thought those things were scripted.
And you broke the skateboard. When you get ready.
It was broken. They gave me a broken skateboard.
I was like, did he really break that skateboard?
So I walked in, and they're so fast, and I was walking in, and as I was walking into the studios, Bobby Flay passes right next to me, and he's just on his phone. He doesn't even acknowledge you. He's like, what's up?
Right.
Kind of like, this guy's an asshole. And then they put me in a room with the guy that I had to go against before going against Bobby Flay. This kid from Kentucky, he was Taiwanese Chinese. So I was like, I'm done. I'm losing this. And we actually, became close friends after that. I went against this kid. I won, and then they told me, okay, you're going against Bobby. You got 20 seconds to look around, and then we're live. everything that they show on that TV show is real, and I thought that it was not. I thought that, oh yeah, they're gonna give you time.
I mean, he dropped the sauce.
Yeah,
I was like,
you know,
oh.
They had everything ready for him in a lot of things, and you have to go and look for your own things. But it was fun, right? Funny enough is that I forgot to plate 2 dishes out of the Kung Pao.
Oh, and I saw the chicharrón. I was like, no, not the chicharrón.
Right, and I thought that I had lost, but I didn't know, and it was not. I bid by play doing Kung Pao chicken.
I know, but I now want to try
crazy.
that.
Right? So the fun thing about that is that one of the judges was Wilson Tang. He's got a restaurant called Namwa Tea Parlor in New York City, one of the oldest dim sum, if not the oldest dim sum restaurant in America, if I'm not mistaken. And he's doing a really good job keeping his family tradition alive. So when I saw that Wilson was going to be the judge, I was more scared of Wilson than Bobby Flay. Because I didn't want it to look bad in front of that guy on national television running a Chinese restaurant. So it was great. And then, I don't know, 7-8 years later, I did a dinner with Wilson here at Zitz. So it was kind of like, it was great.
And then meeting Tony Hawk as a fan.
That was awesome. That was.
I mean, I knew you kept your cool, but you're like, yeah, I looked up to you.
Yeah. We had a few words. Actually, the producers came to me and they were like, hey, Tony's a little awkward. He's very social. He has a lot of social anxiety.
Yeah.
So can you just break the ice a little bit, because this guy's clearly uncomfortable doing this. It was something that Tony Hawk
didn't come across at all.
Yes. So I was like, but I'm also socially awkward. I'm also very shy. So it was kind of like a couple weird interactions, but after off camera, I had a couple words with him, and it was great. I mean, I am a skateboarding kid. I'm a punk rock kid. My first video game was Tony Hawk. The music that I love still to this day was the music that they used to play in his video games.
And you didn't know going there that he was going to be there.
I had no idea who the judges were
Talk
going
about
to be. Yeah, they just told me 5 minutes before that, right? So it was Michael Voltaggio and Tony Hawk. It was fun. It was great.
You're like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? But so cool.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so COVID happens.
Yeah, COVID happened. I mean, No Name Chinese closes.
Oh, right. Okay.
Andrew Fredman, rest in peace. He decided to close that restaurant. It was a very amicable. Closing. He took care of everybody. They kept me, on payroll for a few months. I was closing down the restaurant, selling things, organizing, closing all those things, and then, I had the opportunity to go back to hotels. I was like, okay, I'm done with the small restaurants.
Right, you were going to do thesis for a while there.
Yeah, so
a little while.
Yeah, I mean, it took some time. So the day that we closed No Name, or the day that they closed No Name, Niven and his business partners were having the last dinner at No Name, and they offered me a job as the executive chef of the hotel. So it was great. I mean, I'm closing one the same day. I'm already getting a job offer. I always wanted to work with Niven, so it was kind of like this really awesome moment. So we worked together, to get Thesis Hotel, Mame, and Orno kind of like ready in a way. And then COVID happened, and they tried to keep all of us on payroll, but they couldn't. So I got furloughed, and I started doing dumplings out of my house. I started selling dumplings out of my house. Well, funny enough, so I sit down in the balcony with my wife, and I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? I have no plan B. And we don't know when the world is going to go back to normal, so we have to figure something out.
It was supposed to be 2 weeks.
Right? So over the last 6 months of No Name Chinese, I was managing the social media. That's one of the things that I like. I like design, and I like that part of everything. So I was like, we have the No Name Chinese Instagram open. So I reached out to Robbie Oppenheim. He was one of the managing partners at No Name Chinese, and I asked him if I could use No Name Chinese's social media platform to sell frozen dumplings out of my house. Robbie is a mentor, a good friend, an advisor, everything. And he told me, well, you are no-name Chinese, so you can do with the brand whatever you want. So out of impulse, I posted on the no-name Chinese account, we're coming back. Almost 2 years after the restaurant had closed. And people started going nuts because it was in the middle of the pandemic and we're coming back. But then I was like, yeah, but I don't want to use that name though. Right? Because I want to kind of like be different than that.
Is that the same account you have for Zitz now or no? So it's really transitioned.
Yeah. So I was like, well, my nickname is Zitz because of my last name. And for some reason, I thought in that moment that dim sum and Zitzmann rhymed. So I was like, okay, I created a logo and I changed the name and I changed the handle and I started selling dumplings out of my house. We were living in a 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Dayland with my wife, making ends meet, and the kitchen counter was the size of these 2 tables together, and I was doing 600, 700 dumplings a day. We were packing everything in my car and going downstairs and opening the trunk of the car, and we had people lining up and just picking up things. So from dumplings, then we added the kung pao chicken, and we added the beef and broccoli, and then we added scallion and pancakes and baos, and all of a sudden we had a full restaurant inside of our house. We pissed a few people off.
I was going to say, yeah.
They were like, what are you doing? And we made a lot of people happy as well. There's a lot of like COVID stories and, people that they remember, that they say that our food made them, enjoy being locked down a little bit more. It was fun, but it was definitely, I think that was the time in my life that I worked the hardest that I have ever worked in my life. It was me and my wife. Emma was 6 months old. Nico was about 4 years old. We were locked inside of an apartment. Going every morning at 5 a.m. in the morning to Restaurant Depot, then to the Asian markets, then going back home, then prepping for things. We started doing a lot of catering. And we were kind of like, okay, maybe we should give this a try instead of just like being employed. Eventually, when the world reopens, let's just try to figure out a way how to do this. There was no plan. There was no business plan. There was no north necessarily. We were just like doing it day by day. And a friend of mine reached out and he told me that there was a bakery that had closed down in Coral Gables. And the owners of the building, they wanted to have pop-ups if I wanted to go and see, I came to see the space. It was hidden. I didn't like the way it looked. But it was an opportunity for me to, kind of like leave my house. But I had like second thoughts and I was nervous, so I said no, right? Then a friend of mine, she had a cooking school, / Williams Sonoma-esque store close by called Aragon 101. Right here in Coral Gables, and she used to sell like really beautiful home and kitchen decor, but she also had a kitchen inside of it, so she used to do a lot of cooking classes there and private dinners. And on my days off before the pandemic, I was doing a lot of cooking classes there. So I knew the space, and she told me, well, the store is closed. I'm not using the kitchen. I'm not going to charge you for anything. Leave your house alone, come over here and do your dumplings, and as long as you feed me, I'm okay with that. So for 3 months, I did my production there. But then the guys from that location, the bakery, they kept like calling me and, hey, we have the space. So finally I caved in. I signed a short-term lease, and that's where we are right now. Where Zitzmann is. Yeah. And that's almost 4 years ago.
And then you liked the idea of keeping it mysterious without a name outside or without telling guests how to get here. As I got lost the whole time, the first time. Then it became fun. Like, you could find it.
Signage is an issue, right?
Yes.
Because the city of Coral Gables is very difficult with that. Number two, the budget and the amount of money that goes into, paying for a sign and the permits and all those things. And where do we put it? We cannot put it outside in Lejeune because we can't. And, there's nothing in the building signage-wise that we could do. But I was like, well, I mean, we had a restaurant, No Name Chinese, that No Name didn't have a sign for the first 2 years either. I mean, kind of like the anti-restaurant kind of like mentality, and that's how I call Zitzmann. Zitzmann is the anti-restaurant, because we've done a lot of things that here that I don't think that they will fly on a normal restaurant setting. So no sign. There's directions on the website.
But not when I came.
On the FAQ. No, I think that we learned that lesson with you. And
With me, I didn't complain about it.
No, I'm just kidding. And then
I complained when they wanted to sit me outside, and I was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not sitting outside.
Yeah, no, the patio's rough.
So Zitz is here, and then 2022 happens. That was a huge year for you. New York Times, James Beard, and Michelin.
Crazy.
All in 2022.
No PR.
No PR. Talk to me about your journey with the Michelin Guide, all the feelings going into that first ceremony in Orlando, the moment that was kind of ruined a little bit right before the official announcement, and I experienced with you, going into it the second year, and then finally the feelings going into it the last year. So many emotions, but also so much personal and professional growth.
Correct. I was actually having a conversation about this last night with Eric Soltz from It's
I love them.
First year, right? I think that, even when we were working at John George's, or with JG, not at John George's, the looming vibe that Michelin was kind of like coming to town was always there.
All the rumors.
Right, all the rumors. And then finally, I think that you're the one who breaks the news. And I'm like, great. Awesome. But
5 months before it was officially announced.
right? But it just never crossed my mind, because that to me was so far fetched. It was just like, I was like, great, good for the restaurants. Like I didn't think about anything of that, right? And I just moved on with my life, my day, and the restaurant. I'm sitting one day, and I'm just doom scrolling on Instagram. And this guy, he doesn't have a restaurant here in Miami, but he posts a screenshot of an email that he got from the Michelin Guide. It was kind of like a survey, right?
Oh, right.
And I look at it and I'm like, man, this guy's really bragging about this. Like you should just keep those things to yourself. That's what I thought. But then something in me told me, okay. So I went back and I took a screenshot of his story, and then I zoomed in and I saw the date, and I was like, oh, it's today's date.
Oh, right. He just got
Right.
it.
So let me just look at my email. You never know.
Right.
You have no idea. So I went in and I checked my email, and of course there was nothing, and I was like, okay, cool, awesome, perfect. But then I had the espinita, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, but okay, I'm gonna wait a day. And then the day after, I check all my spam, I check everything, nothing. And then I am talking with Diana, our GM.
Michelin has given all of you gray hairs because
Right.
you're like always waiting for that email.
So I'm like, but it wasn't that I was waiting for it. It was more like, I wish I could get it kind of like
Right.
thing.
Is it in the cards for us?
Right. And that was the first year, right? And then I remember that I had this old info@zitzmann.com email
right.
that I had never, I had opened it, but I think that we put it on the website and I forgot the password. I
my
don't
gosh.
use it. So I'm like, that's it. So I go in and I check the spam, and there was 20 emails from the Michelin Guide. Last day to fill the survey, last day to fill the survey, last day to fill the survey.
think
and
I knew this part of the story.
Damn it. Right? So I show it to Diana, and then I send a screenshot to my wife, and I want to fucking puke. Because I was like, okay, this is awesome. This is big. That means that in any way, in any shape
They
or
noticed.
form,
You were noticed.
like, we're being noticed. So I rushed into it. I sent the survey with whatever I had, and I'm forgetting the timing, but maybe a month later, we got the invitation to go to the ceremony. And when I got the invitation, my first thought was like, okay, cool. They're inviting all of us. Kind of like the first big night, I was thinking that there was
Right.
going to be 700 people over there, and it was going to be a really big party, and everybody was just kind of like, hey, we're Michelin, we're here.
Let's celebrate Miami.
Push, go.
Yeah.
Celebration of Miami, right? So I didn't think too much of it, right? I honestly was just convinced that it was just an event that we were all just going to be a part of. I was like, man, that's really nice from the guy to invite all of us.
Invite everybody.
Right? It's like, okay. So then we saw that it was in Tampa, so that was a great opportunity for me and my wife. Orlando. It was a great opportunity for me and my wife just to disconnect a little bit and to have like a little 2-3 day vacation. Mm-hmm. We booked a hotel. We get there a few days before. We're having a blast. We're having a great time. And
you hadn't realized that not everybody was going?
I realized that not everybody was going 30 minutes before the ceremony started, right? Because, I saw everybody kind of like we were having lunch with, Nando and Valerie, and then, I was hitting the bar constantly with Beltran and just like having
the bar with Beltran? No.
Yeah, having Negronis left and right.
Shocker.
Right? So it was kind of like, I was not thinking too much about it. I was like, man, I'm getting to spend time with a lot of people that I love from the industry that I don't get to spend time with. And we're all together in this badass hotel and we're just having lunch and cocktails and dinner and all these things. And I'm like, this is great, right? So we go to a room, I get ready, we come downstairs, and it's 30 minutes before the ceremony. And then I look around and I'm like, where's everybody? Right? And I think Mo, he says, well, this is everybody.
Right.
What do you mean? He's like, yeah, this is us. And that's when I'm like, fuck. Okay. So then we went to inside of the tent. It was fucking hot. Mm-hmm. And then I look around and again, there's like 12 chairs. And I'm like, no, this is not happening. Right? So my first reaction was not that I think that that's the case or we deserved it, but I was like, please, for the love of God, don't give me a Michelin star. That was my first reaction, right? Again, not because I thought that we deserved it or we thought that, or I think that we are at that level, but the restaurant was very young. Our staff was very young. I was still navigating the waters of owning my own business and, cooking, having that duality between cooking the food that I want to cook and the food that I have to cook.
But you have that wisdom now,
correct.
too. Because
right?
at that moment it was different.
It was different. But,
and you're and Zitzmann is different.
Right, but again, it was that moment that I was like, we're not ready for this shit.
Right.
And I almost went into a panic attack moment, right? I was like, please, no.
And they just kept talking and talking and we're like, just get on with it.
Right, and then I remember, of course, I had Jeremy right next to me and Jeremy was crying, anxiety, and I see everybody, and of course I knew that Jeremy was getting his star, right? And I knew that Beltran was getting his star, and I was very happy for everybody. But inside of me, I was like, please, for the love of God, right? Don't give me this because I don't know how to handle it. Or I'm afraid of
keeping that standard.
Keeping the standard, and we're very mature still.
Right.
We're still very, very little, right? And I'm like, give me a bib, please. If this is going to be the case, just a recognition, a plate, a bib, whatever it is, or one in a row. So, and you're like sitting, I remember that you're right on my left-hand side.
Yeah, I was standing.
And then, the emotions and the excitement and everything and the nervousness. I remember I was crying and I got a text message from somebody and they're like, hey, congrats on your bib. And I just look at it and I'm like, what are you talking about? The ceremony hasn't even started.
Right.
And he was like, oops, didn't I ruined it for you, didn't I? And I was like, yes, asshole, you did. Right? Though, like, a weight was lifted out of my shoulders because I was able to appreciate the fact that we were given a bib, right? And I was also given the opportunity to celebrate Jeremy's win and Michael's win and all the people that I admire and I love, like seeing them reaching the goals that they wanted to reach. I was able to kind of like process that in a better way, right? But it kind of like ruined the excitement of me just going and getting my bib,
you're like,
right?
Shit or something, and I was like, wow, what happened? You said someone just texted me, and then but you didn't tell me what it was.
Yeah.
I said, well, what is it? I go, bib or star, and you're like, and you were like,
Yeah.
you'll see. But then Cheryl was standing next to me,
Yeah.
and right on the heels of that, she said, oh my gosh, they messed up and they released the list ahead of time. And then she was trying to and I, at that point, we were all like huddling on her phone.
Yeah.
Let's see. But when she refreshed, they had removed it.
Yeah. So
Which was great because then we were able to be surprised, but
correct,
we were.
but I had a screenshot of it. Right. And the thing is that I didn't want it, not that he was paying attention to, but I didn't want Jeremy that it was next to me to ruin his surprise.
Yeah.
Right. But I knew the list like 8 minutes before the ceremony started. I knew who was getting what and whatever it is. So we got our bib and it was amazing. It was a feeling that,
We always talk about this. That energy that night was incomparable to any other ceremony.
I think so. I again, I haven't professionally, I haven't felt that happy and that proud in my life, right? Because it was just like the culmination or the beginning, however you want to see it, of a lot of efforts and a lot of pain that we went through and a lot of things that we as a team and me with my wife as a family we've been through to get Zitz where it needs to be, right? So having a Michelin Bib Gourmand was never part of my plan. It was never part of what we were aiming for, nor the James Beard Foundation, nor the New York Times 50 Best. And just getting a bib was kind of like my own star. And I remember going upstairs to the hotel and sleeping with the bibendum right next to us and on the airplane and coming back home and the team was excited and everything. And, of course, before I left, we had a meeting with all the staff and I was like, guys, whatever it is that we're going to get, I just want you guys that we're proud. And everybody in the restaurant was extremely, extremely proud of, getting that bib. And I think that to this day, it is my proudest moment in the history of Michelin and Zitzmann for sure. But then, of course, you start seeing, you start comparing yourself with other restaurants. You also see the financial benefit of being a Michelin awarded restaurant in a city like Miami. And then you start thinking, well, why don't we just push for more? Right? We could have just said like, hey, we're just doing bib and we're going to be the forever bib. But that little competitive side of me,
you start questioning everything.
Yeah.
Imagine had you gotten the star right away. You would have been driving yourself crazy. Even more. Yeah.
Right. So we went from, like having the best moment and being able to enjoy it as a team to be like, okay, we're going to raise the bar. And I want that chip. And I want to be that guy in that stage next year, not with a bib, but with a star, right? And then I started just telling myself stories and kind of like, I closed myself a lot. I almost had this like Zitzama against everybody kind of like mentality where we wanted to be better every day and we had this idea of being the underdogs, and I started believing a lot of things that a lot of people were fluffing us up, and we started getting people telling us, hey, you're getting this and you're getting that and you deserve this and you deserve that, and we kind of like derailed a little bit from our initial way of operating. We rolled in the tasting menu. We started, of course, seeing the financial aspect of it, and we kept pushing and pushing and pushing, consistently, sometimes inconsistently, some other times. We just became a different restaurant, right? And it just felt weird. It didn't feel like we were being ourselves, right? But I had this thing that it's like, oh no, this year we're getting the star for sure, right? My own immaturity and my own kind of like believing.
But it wasn't just you. I feel like a lot of restaurants were doing the same. Oh, well, excuse me. Well, we have one, now we're going to get two. And everyone starts to, you get into the excitement of it, and it's, I think it's normal.
It's normal, right? And we didn't know how to navigate this whole thing, right? And again,
like when someone gets sudden fame,
yeah.
Even if it's 15 minutes, someone on TV or whatever,
right. And we
it starts great, and then you lose your sight of yourself a little bit.
And that's exactly what happened. And I think that I lost sight of it, and we were just like operating with this thing that instead of just like being the restaurant that we have always been and that we are right now, we're just guest focused, we're just quality focused, we're just product focused, we're just staff and team focused. We were just Michelin star focused.
Right.
And we believed it, and we went to that ceremony on the Marlin Stadium, and yeah, it was rough, and I went in actually thinking and believing in it, right? Because I've always been someone that I don't give myself a lot of credit for a lot of things, right? But that year specifically is like, I'm gonna live it, I'm gonna be proud of it, I'm gonna tell myself that I'm able to, that I'm gonna do it. And then I was like, yeah, I mean, a year is all it takes for me to jump from a bib to a star, no problem.
Right.
Let me show you what I got, right? And then, of course, I got slapped in the face with, the bib again. At least that's what it felt in that moment. I got the bib. I went to
It's a sinking feeling.
Yeah, it was not a fun feeling. I went to the stage. I got the bib. I remember that now that I see them, I'm very upset at myself because I see my face in the pictures and I was just like pissed, right? Disappointed. I cried all the ride back to the restaurant because I was like, I'm a failure. I disappointed my staff. Like everything. My wife was just like, "Hey, dude! Like, there's so many. Like, this is an accomplishment
It
on
is.
its
You know how
own."
many people don't have a bib?
Exactly, and it's your second year. You've been able
Plus,
to.
you have a palate award. You're good.
There you go. And I was like, yeah, but you don't know. You do not understand me. Like, I was angry, and I was angry with the world, and we parked in front of the restaurant, and I started crying, and then I had to get myself together because I had to come back to the restaurant for service. Because if there was one
You came
place
back for service that night?
Yes, I came back because I didn't
No
want
party for you. Yeah, there was
no
nothing
party.
to. Right.
No, I literally
I
got the bib and I walked out of the place. Because again, I didn't want it, and also the context of how
It was a weird ceremony.
Oh, it
I
was.
hope
It
they
was
never
just like,
ever do that again.
And then I opened the doors of the restaurant, and the restaurant's packed. There's a line out of the door, and the staff looks at me and is like, "Yo, chef, what's up? Congrats!" And that was the moment where I saw it's like, "Whoa, wait a second."
You have a packed restaurant.
I am seeing this from a completely different perspective, and I'm not. I am not being able to appreciate this. And I'm just like telling myself this like stories and living the chef thing and the Michelin thing, whatever it is. I need to change the way that I see this, right? And I had all those emotions on the same day. But that day specifically, we changed the way that we operate, and Diana and I, we made a pact that we never talk about M anymore, right? Not because we don't want it, because again, we're proud.
There's nothing wrong with having goals.
Correct, right? And we're proud of being the restaurant that we are. We're extremely proud and appreciative of the recognition that we have gotten. But our modus operandi no longer revolves around the M anymore.
And I say that because it's hard. It has to be hard because if I put myself in your shoes, how do you not second guess like, should I plate this way? Or, and then the comparison part, like it probably takes daily talks with yourself to stay away from that because.
Yeah, and then you're like, okay, but and then you start checking what other restaurants are doing, and then you start this like unhealthy comparison with, well, but this person got it and not me, and this and that and stuff like that. And, we all fall into that trap. But I think that I realized that day and the months after the repercussions that we had with that modus operandi and that our business model revolved around getting to a Michelin star level instead of being the best version of this restaurant, instead of just like maximizing what we could do within these four walls and the team that we have.
And you have,
and I think that this year, and then the third bib, right? It was great. I went into the ceremony with not a lot of expectations. Also being cautious and making sure that I'm treating myself fairly and knowing that I don't want to put myself in that position again. But we went already knowing that our goals are different, and we're different, and are different than the goals that we had 2 years ago.
It was a beautiful ceremony.
It was awesome, and I was able to reconnect.
And still small,
right?
For
it was
Miami,
beautiful,
for Miami
right?
chefs.
So I opened the Edition hotel. So it was awesome to go to the Edition, and kind of like stay a few days over there and see some old friends, and reconnect with a lot of people from Miami that I was able to connect over there in Tampa. Had beautiful conversations with Mo and Niven
and you took some of your cooks. They were so.
And I took Maynard and I took Ivan, Maynard is one of our OGs in the front of the house. Ivan is our sous chef now for another concept that we're working on, and I wanted to bring them on. They couldn't go. I don't know why they didn't let them in, but they stayed behind, and then they partied with us after. But I knew that I was going to get a bib, and I went proud, and I received it with appreciation and with a little bit more maturity, I guess.
Yeah.
More humble and focused, and came back home, and it was awesome having 3 bibs on 3 years of existence, opening this restaurant with $2,000. I couldn't be more proud.
Like you like to say, DIY.
Everything DIY, the most punk rock thing in the world, right? I believe that now we are a more focused and polished version of what we were 3 years ago. The team has matured. The same team that we got the bib the first time around is the same team that we have now. And seeing their evolution, and seeing the evolution of our food, and seeing the evolution of me as a leader and Diana as a leader, I think it's great.
How did you meet Diana?
She was our hostess in No Name Chinese.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw something special in that girl, and I was like, she's very smart.
awesome.
And
But she makes me cafecito, so.
Yeah, and I told her in that moment when I met her at No Name Chinese, it's like, I want to build a lot of things around you because I think that you're great. And yeah, that's how I met her.
So speaking of goals that you mentioned a little earlier, what are your goals professionally now, and say for like the next 5 years? All these secret projects you have going on that you don't want me to ask about.
Goals. Well, keep building what we have going on as Zitzmann. We have a great team. We have a great pool of talent. The past year has been a lot of evolution for them and for me as well. I'm kind of like doing a different role now. I'm just like growing to understand what it really takes to be a business owner more than anything else. I have a great chef in the kitchen, Amanda. I have a great partner and general manager in Diana. I am spending more time at home with the kids and with the wife. It's important, finding that balance, and especially now that my kids are growing so fast. I need to be more involved and need to kind of like spend more time with them because this industry just sucks the life out of you. We have 2 projects in the works currently. One is in Coconut Grove. One is in Coral Gables. Coconut Grove is going to be something completely different from Zitzmann, and it's going to be an American style restaurant, breakfast, lunch, cafe situation in the Grove called room service. It's going to be inside of a building very similar to the setting that we have over here, but 5 times the size. And we're going to have a cafe serving beautiful, counterculture coffee, and my wife is going to be doing pastries and breakfast.
I love looking at her stuff.
We're going to have sandwiches, burgers, different things all the time. A beautiful bar. And super excited about that project. And we also have a project in the works as well that's called Dojo, which is a izakaya, like a modern Japanese bar / restaurant. Doing a lot of the things that we were doing at the beginning of Zitzmann.
Right, I was going to say dumplings moving there.
No, not necessarily. No, I don't think so. I think that I'm going to keep the dumplings here, but we're doing a lot of yakitori. You're welcome. We're doing yakitori. We're doing a lot of chirashi bowls, like a lot of things cooked over charcoal. Okonomiyaki, like all the things that you find in an izakaya. Dojo is going to have those. So I'm super excited about that too. So we have a lot of moving parts currently, with a few more projects in the works. So 5 years from now, if everything works, we're going to have almost 5 restaurants, which is scary.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, it's nuts, But again, I think that the team deserves it. It's also an outlet for them to, do things outside of these 4 walls. it gives me the opportunity to be able to diversify the things that I do and keep growing the company without overextending ourselves. But we have gotten to a point that the people that we have here, they're ready for more. And it is also my responsibility to make sure that we invest in them and in their growth, and they're part of the culture of what makes this restaurant what it is. So now it's time to put ourselves in uncomfortable positions and do things the right way and expand and evolve.
What is your favorite part of what you do?
I have two things that I really like about what I do. Number one is seeing a lot of our regulars coming back and having all the new dishes that we have and falling in love with them. Because it's so rewarding. Because it's challenging for the guest perspective. You fall in love with a dish as a Tom, and then you come back and you don't have that dish anymore. No. And then you get something else that it might excite you, and that's kind of like a really rewarding part of it. And the second thing is seeing how independent our team is and their growth. So mentorship is kind of like number one for me now.
What do you think about the current state of South Florida dining overall now?
I think it's great. I mean, there's a duality, right? Restaurants are evolving and diners are not, in certain aspects. We're seeing now more young restaurateurs and operators gambling on themselves and kind of like opening small restaurants, chef-driven concepts, very seasonal, very local, simple food, ingredient-driven. And we also see those big New York expats that they come here and they open also massive restaurants. But it's great. I think that it is in a constant evolution state. There's a lot of options for the diners, right? But I think that there's the speed that we're going and how many restaurants are opening and how many different concepts we are. I think that sometimes the market is a little saturated.
Yeah.
So there's too many options and not a lot of quality options. You know, and the diners are just sometimes they just don't understand things. And with the Michelin Guide, for example, like sometimes people come here and they see this restaurant and they're like, how come this restaurant is on the Michelin Guide? Because they think of the Michelin or all the other things based on the things that they see on TV, right? So yeah, it's just kind of like weird. But I think that it's exciting, especially because a lot of the people that you saw 5-10 years ago being line cooks and being sous chefs, and now they're opening their own restaurants and their own things. I think it's very impressive and exciting.
What are some of your favorite Miami restaurants to visit?
I don't go out to eat out anymore.
Anymore?
No, I haven't dined out at a proper restaurant in almost a year.
Why?
Because I'm spending time at home, right? My thing is Sundays is barbecue days with the kids, right? And that's my only day off, technically, because Sundays, even though the restaurant is closed, I come here, I work, I take the night off,
Well,
stuff
there's
like
always
that.
something,
But
yeah, you have to-
right, we go to this place close home called Lucia, which is kind of like it's an Italian restaurant from the people from Graciano's.
Oh yeah.
They have a very decent pizza.
I was going to say the pizzas.
Right, wood fire. The egg parmesan is delicious. If I were to pick a place that I haven't been in a long time, but it was my watering hole and kind of like the place that I always gravitated towards, is the Gibson. I haven't been there in a minute, but that was kind of like my favorite spot. Yeah. We went to Maddie's a few months ago. Delicious. don't even know what's out there anymore.
I'll guide you. If you guys want date night one day, let me know. I'll give you some suggestions.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think. Chugs we always go to. It's kind of like a really, really
I
awesome.
wish we had one by my house.
You
We
know,
would live there
like,
with my son.
that's, we're more simple now. It's more convenient also because we're with the kids and it's
Yeah.
in and out all the time. I really want to go to mass. Actually,
I was thinking, you want to go to mass, but Sundays you got a barbecue.
Yeah, there you
I was
go.
thinking mass, like church. I'm
no,
like,
no,
so
no,
go
no.
to mass.
Mass.
I
Ryan's.
think you should go to mass, but I think you should go to Omo if you wanted to.
Omo by Jaunt, right, which is in Orlando, right?
Yeah, because I love mass, but I
mean, everything that Ryan does
oh
is
my
awesome.
God. Yes.
Right? I think that the last real fancy dinner I've had in the last year was actually at Bresca.
Oh, Bresca, okay.
Yeah, because we cooked with them over there at Bresca, and it was just
Yeah, mass or Omo, but I mean, Omo I was blown away. But
Lutez. Have you been to Lutez?
I did brunch
I
there.
loved it.
Yeah, the dessert. with
Yeah.
that cheese on top.
Yeah,
Forgetting
the mimolette. It was honeycomb, semifreddo, and shaved mimolette
I'm still
cheese
regretting
on
that
top.
I didn't film the inside of that because you can't tell from the outside what that inside looks like.
Oof,
It's
that is
ridiculous.
yes.
Probably one of the best things I had this year.
Yes.
It's delicious.
Yes.
And there was a line. Well, I had a reservation, but a line was full.
Yeah,
People were upset about that.
We got there because we went to cook at Bresca, so we
That's right.
we spent, I believe, 4 days in DC, and we went to, of course, we had dinner at Bresca, we had some snacks at Jaunt, and then we went to Bar Sparrow
We did Bar
and
Sparrow.
Lutez, but we had a reservation at Lutez. It was hot because they don't have AC over there. It was
I sat inside with AC.
Yes.
Yes.
It was
I would not.
It was so fucking
I would
hot.
not have dined without
so
AC.
hot.
Have we
but
met?
Everything.
I mean, there was an outside area, but I'm not sitting outside.
No.
No,
we were inside.
the AC must have been broken.
Because and it was such an incredible meal. We had so much fun.
Did you do dinner or lunch?
We did dinner.
Oh,
we
I did
had
lunch, okay.
the whole menu.
Okay.
It was my wife, Diana, Amanda, our chef de cuisine, Adrian, a friend of ours, and it was just us, and we just had the whole menu. And that was kind of like the last memorable meal that I had. But here in Miami, Lucia, that's my go-to.
Yeah. I strongly recommend Mouse. Like,
Cool.
if you're gonna go and see what, I mean, it's probably one of our top in South Florida right now, easily.
And then Graciano's here,
Yeah.
again, another Graciano's thing. The place over here, right across the street from Zitzmann, they have this asado de tira, like this like really beautiful grilled short rib, bone-in short rib.
I do love Gracias. Remember, Larry's Argentinian.
Yeah.
We're actually going. We haven't been in a bit, but we're going in a couple of weeks because the couple we're going with, that's like their favorite. So they want to do that, then that's what we're doing. I'm not gonna complain. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, but no, we lay low. We're laying low.
What do you want your listeners to know that maybe I haven't covered?
No, I mean, we spoke about the restaurants, dojo and room service. Actually, this is the first time that I talk about it with someone. I mean, you've known this,
Yes.
right? Because you and me, we keep in touch. But no, I mean, I think that if you haven't been to Zitzmann in the last year, I think that you should come and check it out. I'm really proud of what our kitchen team is doing and the front of the house team is doing, and it's great. There might be some no-name Chinese revival in a fast casual way, maybe in the near future.
You did the pop-up 3 times already?
Yeah, this
Yeah?
weekend we're actually going to do it again.
Okay.
Yeah. We're testing recipes. That's why we're doing it so much.
Okay. Okay, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
And I do agree with what you said, how you phrased it. You said if you haven't been in a while, because I always rave about Zitz, and then sometimes I'll get someone saying, "Oh yeah, I went when they first opened," and I'm thinking, well, you need to go again because it's not that it's completely different, but it's
No, it is.
I mean, the flavors, our profiles are still there, and I've always said that's what sets you apart. And But the formatting is different too, and I feel like people need to come back again and do the tasting menu and.
Yeah, and you know, I followed your advice because I remember that you told me one time when you came and you had dinner, and I was trying to cook more delicate, right?
Yeah, like the duck.
And I was actually really excited because I was like, man, it's awesome that you always support, but I was really excited for you to have that menu specifically. That your feedback, it was surprising. In the sense of you told me like, hey, don't forget what makes Zitzmann good, because what you're cooking is awesome, and I can see the technique and I can see the flavors, but it's not you, right? And that hit home, you know, because I like acid forward, very spicy, in your face, like no apologies. And there was a moment that we were just like very delicate, almost too delicate. So if you haven't been, Brenda, you have to.
Oh, really? I haven't been. I was just here a couple weeks ago, I think. Several weeks ago. 3,
One of the
4?
things that I want people to know, is this like a the shameless plug thing
You
that
can.
Michael does?
Okay, I'm not copying Pancon podcast, okay? This is my version of the question.
My wife, she makes beautiful.
Yes. Well, that was one of the next things. Where can people find you and your wife on social media and everything that she does? So beautiful.
You know, Zitzmann, at Zitzmann on Instagram. My Instagram is 2 veces 12.
Which why? Why is that? Why? I've been trying to figure that one out. Like,
all right, so I was born December 12 at 12.
Okay. December 12.
My wife,
12, okay.
My wife was born September 12th, and our daughter was born November 12th.
Okay.
So it's more than 2 veces. It's like 5 veces 12.
Okay. Dos
Right?
veces
But,
12.
you know, it's like the 12th. And my favorite number is 3, so 1 + 2 is 3. So it's kind of like, I like that 12
Right.
thing. I like
Okay.
that 1-2
Okay,
situation.
so dos veces 12.
2 veces 12. And my wife, Nikem Confections, she makes beautiful...
Spell that.
Nikem, Nikem Confections. She makes beautiful cookies and cakes and decorations, and she's a magician.
Does look beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for chatting with me on air. Candidly, it's always fun, and we can geek out and talk for like 3 hours. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you, the listener, for tuning in. Please remember to share your favorite episodes with friends, and especially on social media. You have no idea how much that simple step helps the podcast thrive. It costs you nothing. It takes seconds, and I really appreciate it. As always, from my palate to yours, cheers! Woo! We did it!
Awesome.
Yeah, that was easy peasy.